broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Houston, Texas. It's time for Houston Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hello, Houston. Trisha Stetzel here, bringing you another episode of Houston Business Radio. Today's guest is Terry Hess, principal at Trident Capital Holdings, a strategic investor and capital partner dedicated to unlocking growth in small and mid-sized companies. With more than 20 years of leadership experience as a CEO, CFO, and investor, Terry has helped businesses scale profitably while managing risk, building systems, and driving enterprise value. At TCH, Terry and his team invest in companies with revenues between 30 to 100 million, providing not just capital, but the strategic and operational horsepower to help those businesses reach their full potential. From leading turnarounds to structuring over 1.1 billion in transactions, Terry brings a hands-on, disciplined approach to growth, helping business owners turn vision into measurable. Terry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Trisha. Very nice to be here. Thank you.
Nice to have you today. So tell us a little bit more about Terry.
Well, I start off with this sort of a similar introduction. I'm a mutt. My background does not make a lot of sense, but I majored in finance, went to Wall Street. I was on Wall Street for 4 years selling European equities. I was actually terrible at it. What sort of put me into a different area, but so then I went and moved on to a hotel brokerage firm in Manhattan, where we were brokering either the sale of an asset or equity or debt financings for trophy assets, mostly in Manhattan and Chicago. I shifted from that actually to take control over a family business down here in Atlanta, and got into the secondary education space. So after high school, it was a skilled trade company. Ran that for about 9 years as the CEO. And after when that ended, then became a consultant to, I don't know, it's probably 30 plus companies across various industries. Again, I get back to, I'm a mutt.
So, these days, Terry, we don't call them mutts, we call them designer. I'm just saying.
You work with that, even better.
Sounds fancier, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Trident Capital Holdings. I know I gave a lot of surrounding information around TCH, but what would you like for the audience to know about TCH?
Yeah. So TCH got really its impetus was I work, when I got into those advisory roles for the 30 plus companies, inevitably you get surrounded by other advisors, and most of us are in the sort of fractional space. So fractional CFOs, chief operating officers, VPs of sales, HR, et cetera. So any folks on the C-suite level. And there was a common frustration that we shared, which was not 100% of the time, but in many cases, we would get into these companies, provide this professional management and leadership, and watch them be successful. And so, there's a compensation structure with that. We got paid well, but in many cases, we wanted to, get a bigger stake in the upside of those companies. So Trident, we got a lot of our interest, if you will, from these advisors, and myself and my colleagues were a part of several advisory networks. But that's the idea. These folks are in companies. A lot of these companies are at various stages of growth, and they either need additional capital to kind of scale and grow and fulfill their vision. And so that's how we got started. So we're trying to bring not only capital to the table to help these companies grow and scale, but also the advisory piece of it.
Okay, interesting. So tell me more about the companies you support.
So I guess, so it is across the map. I'll just kind of share some of the stuff that Trident in particular has spent some time on. So we've worked with underground utility rehabilitation companies. We've worked with transportation companies that are sort of advising municipalities and state DOTs. There are several companies within that purview that could come together, if you will. We look at distressed commercial real estate, a commercial laundry operation that's very disruptive to the way that the industry is currently done. We look at petroleum refinery, carbon credits, farming in Colombia. It's all across the map. Of those that I just mentioned, I should say that it really took us evaluating about 80 plus projects to kind of whittle it down to those that we, where we see an ongoing interest, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So pretty broad. Do they all have some common challenge or challenges in common, and the reason why they're interested in working with you?
Yeah, the common thread is all of these folks, we vet those 80 down to this, is that they have a viable entity that has a significant growth opportunity. And many of these projects, so in the publicly traded world, there's a risk reward. So the higher return, the higher the risk, if you will. In our case, many of these things are, we try to de-risk them as much as possible. And also we retain those that, are going to generate above average returns. Typically that means that there's some sort of collateral component that's tied to it. And if it's not for that specific investment, when we combine all these together, there's a collateralization benefit to the portfolio as a whole.
Sure. Okay. Totally makes sense. So you guys go way beyond just simply investing capital. I know you're often embedding leadership. You talked about fractional positions at somewhere along the journey, and probably internal to TCH as well. So embedding leadership strategy and systems post investment. So can you unpack that model and what active ownership looks like in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent question, and I should preface this also ties back to your original question. The other common thread is this: every investment that we look at, there's someone in that's bringing this idea to the table, and there's significant expertise in that vein. We can't get comfortable unless somebody, there's been a career with that individual, their team, and again, it helps us to gain visibility into the future picture relatively quickly. So it all starts there. Our team. We're not trying to deploy advisory. That's not the mission. The mission is to support the folks that are, bringing these investments to the table, and they have the vision, and they, can convince us that if they pair with us and we put capital to it, basically afterwards, once we deploy the capital, we're just trying to keep the train on the tracks. It's a very, very supportive role. And so, they may need us, so a fractional advisor for 6 months or 12, and then they go with a permanent solution. So we're there to be able to pull a lot of levers to, again, just keep the train on the tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. So through that, through the turnarounds or the rapid growth or even like cultural rebuilding in these businesses, when you step in, how do you, because you're in an advisory role as well, how do you identify which levers to pull first? We've got people, processes, and even product in some cases.
Yeah. So in any of these ventures, really, there's never been less than probably a year to 3 years of either them or us, really having a lot of conversations. And, it all starts with sort of underwriting or putting a projection together. And frankly, we go back and forth and test that. We try to poke holes in it, and, we add our other ideas. They come up with ideas, et cetera. So it's a very iterative process to gain that level of comfort. And really, that's where it all starts. And then in that process, there's also assessment of, hey, what are your needs? Mm-hmm. And then the other side of the coin, I think this is not uncommon. It's what a lot of investment firms do. But we also bake in a lot of, just sort of, there's unknown risks, right? Our plan is never, no plan ever goes the way that anybody ever intended. So, provided that you put in sufficient resources so that, hey, when a mistake does happen, we're not all trying to go raise another round of money. We've got, substantial capital on hand that we can sort of correct and fix a problem or spend additional money, what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me more about the values or guiding principles, if you will, around your due diligence to mitigate as much of that risk as you can.
Yeah. I think in my position, and I think for a lot of my partners, the guiding principle is really the relationship. Mm-hmm. The reason I say that is this: is we're not doing it. We're not reinventing anything. It's putting money to work, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that one of our gifts, if you will, is being able to have what many people perceive to be uncomfortable conversations quickly up front, to try to gain and establish a level of trust so that they see, hey, listen, we're not just here to put money to work, walk away, and make money. Again, like I get back to keeping the train on the tracks. A lot of people come up with wonderful ideas, and then when they get $30 million in their bank account to move forward, it's not everybody, but some people get an ego or this big boost of confidence. And again, we're here to say, don't. There's another day that we gotta, wake up and do the right thing. And so not a lot has changed. Like everything you said, everything we've been talking about and trying to work for, we just need to, stay on the path. Obviously we make, adjustments and trajectory changes along the way, but it's a relationship guided endeavor. That's the key. That's the principles that all of our advisors have as well. And that's how we've been able to get work with, so many different clients across many different industries and maintain them. And so, relationship is the driving principle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we share that in common too. It really is about relationships and, knowing and understanding people and sharing values, sharing guiding principles for sure. I know people are already interested in getting to know more about you or having a conversation. So, Terry, tell me the best way for folks to connect with you.
Yeah, I'd say the easiest way is just through email, which it's it's Terry Hess. Sorry, it's Terry at tridentcha.com. And just to avoid confusion, Terry is TERRY at tridentcha.com. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Terry. And if you guys are looking for him anywhere else, his last name is spelled HESS. Of course, I'll put this in the show notes. So if you're in front of your computer, you can just point and click and connect directly with Terry. You have such a diverse background. How it sounds like you're using all of the skills that you've learned over the course of many years in the work that you do with TCH. But what are some of the real standouts for you from experience and expertise perspective that play into what you're doing with TCH?
Trusting people, and I have lots of us have a wealth or a body of knowledge. We can't do it all. There's not enough, even though the skill sets there's not enough time of the day. So it's really building strong relationships and putting people in place that can help. Again, I get back to the relationships. People have to feel comfortable and confident that you don't always have their back in good times, but that we anticipate that and frankly, not only do we anticipate that bad things are going to happen, we also try to anticipate, okay, well, we know that bad things are going to happen. What might those be? Okay. And when you can plan for those, when they do come or some version of them comes, everybody's that much more comfortable and calm, and it just helps to breed success and stay on the path.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure that you've got all kinds of deep relationships with the people that you work with or you bring into an engagement that you trust. How do you go about building the relationship with your clients? So you talked a lot about relationships. So how do you go about building that trust and relationship with them?
Yeah. For me, because we do the same, we have to be comfortable being candid with each other, just very open, very honest. Mm-hmm. I'm particularly interested in what are your raw emotions. I don't need them polished or I don't need them clean or unclean. I just need to know where you're at. Again, much of this stuff to me is just sort of touchy-feely, if you will. And I think that kind of gets right back into their relationships. You got to know where people are at. And I'm sorry to keep harping on that. It may sound boring,
No, it's good. And I think that some of us do get a gut feeling, and sometimes we don't listen to our gut, which is like our second brain, right? And we really do need to listen to it. And the people that we feel good about, typically we can build a relationship with them. So long as they're not faking too hard, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
For
which
sure.
we all do to some degree.
Sometimes
Yeah.
we fake it a little bit. If you don't mind, I'd love to talk about your hobby just for a second, because I think it is a really cool hobby. So will you we talked about it before we started the show today, but something that you do for downtime. We talked about that. We all have to step away from work at some point. So what do you do to relax or step away?
Yeah. So I love woodworking. And I'll sort of share with you why I think that I like it so much.
Okay.
I get back. So at one point in my career, I was the CEO of this the trade school, and you got to bear in mind our product was students. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you walk into any one of our buildings in any given day, you are literally surrounded by up to 500 different people. And guess what? Every single day, without fail, those 500 people each have their own individual set of emotions and experiences and motivations and intentions, et cetera. And to try to get all those people to go down, a certain lane, if you will, and one is always stepping off. And then you have all these employees. Woodworking there's nobody chiming in. It's just you and the wood. So all the mistakes that I make, I've made every single one you can think of. All the mistakes, it's up to me and time to correct them. It's just It's peace and calm, if that makes sense. No drama.
Yeah, I love it. I think, we just spent all this time talking about relationships, and now you have relationship with wood. It's okay,
Yes.
right? It's okay.
Yeah.
It's just you and the wood. I shared with you that I like to garden, so it's just me and the plants, and it's fine,
Absolutely.
right? I don't need anybody to help me with that.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks for sharing that. Just circling back and thinking about how you are installing leadership disciplines. So yes, there's a leader in the business where you go and assist, and you bring all of the people that you know and love and trust in to make this work. How do you build lasting capacity inside of those portfolio companies?
Excellent question. So there are many different leadership and management systems. From my perspective, 80% of them are saying 80% of their material, I should say, 80% of the body of the work is saying about the same thing as any other system. So, one of the ones that we use pretty regularly is called EOS, which stands for Entrepreneurial Organization Systems. And again, it's basically just this apparatus. It comes with books, materials, forms, consultancy to instill how does this company train and sort of keep a platform for its leadership and management. So again, I would argue that we're agnostic, but you do have to have some system. And again, that's sort of a good vetting point as well. So, can we be candid? Can we develop a relationship? And then you, the founder or leader, are you open, sort of take an extreme picture? Can I help you to understand that to do the next step, it's in the realm of possibility that you are going to, your body of knowledge and your impact is going to be, you as an individual is going to be much, much less. Mm-hmm. So how do we extend you and your brain and your knowledge to the rest of the group in a managed fashion? And it's not an overnight solution. It's a process. EOS in particular, they sort of advise all their folks that it's a 2-year endeavor to fully implement the EOS system. So, it's important to have a system in place.
Absolutely. And, I'm just thinking about change. Change is hard for everyone. And although there's a leader with a vision, change still has to happen with them and their team as you're integrating. You talk a little bit about change in these businesses?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how I could collapse that into a good, how would I advise on that? Okay, so I guess let me say there's sort of two extremes. There's companies that do adopt the change. Typically, it is because those companies and the leaders have, beat their head up against the wall. They've tried their method or their ego, and thankfully, there's been enough money in the business has had enough success where they can sort of still stay a going concern. but there's a lot of frustration of, beating your head up against the wall. And so those are typically the ones that adopt to the change the quickest, right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember the saying from one of my colleagues, but it's something to the effect of the pain of change has to outweigh the pain of the status quo in order for a change to take effect. So that's something that's 100% true. And so that's one end of the spectrum. You get people that beat their head up against the wall, they're willing to make a change. The other end of the spectrum is typically it's young men
Okay.
that have yet to beat their head up against the wall.
Yeah.
But they're just, there's a lot of ego or bravado, or that had a lot of success, and they think because they had it in the past that it's just going to continue going forward. But change is inevitable. I mean, I think, for society as a whole, it's with AI and how fast AI is coming, and I think UPS laid off 48,000 workers this week.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get our head wrapped around what that means. So, anyways, but back to your point, you need to adopt change, and that's also how we cull out those 80 that you can sort of, by talking with people and trying to see if you can establish a relationship. If they're not open to change, we just don't bother.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they have to be dissatisfied. There has to be some kind of vision, and you guys can come in and help them with those first steps, right? To help them start to move the needle. What about a turnaround story that really stands out for you?
I'll tell you one of my favorites.
Okay.
This is a guy that a very, very rough background. If you chose to get in it with him, you would wonder why he's not in jail still. Okay. But I think that at some point the light bulb clicked for him that he doesn't want to keep going down this path. He's married. He wants to have kids, and I give him a tremendous amount of credit. He just put the bootstraps on and went to work in a very, very difficult, very dirty industry, and 7 years later had $3 million worth of equipment in his shop. And he's a guy that, again, because of that success, he thought he could, continue to grow and scale. He's a prime example of someone that beat his head up against the wall. So when I came and got involved, it was a very, very toxic, wildly profitable, so very profitable, but very toxic environment. And, all the skills that, the modeling and the looking at the business and the strategy and, putting the right people in place, all that was done. But the real driver of changing that company was basically just being a sounding board for this person. I needed to relate to him. There would not have been anything that we could have done unless he started to take steps to get his mind correct. And, again, I tie it, all the business acumen was there, but if we just let that be, it would have failed. And now, cut to 2 years later, what he is doing and what everyone else in the company is doing by repairing his psyche, for lack of a better word, it's phenomenal. It's wonderful. I mean, just to give you one little metric, they went from a visible pipeline of $1 million, I think, for the next 12 months. And now I think, again, in 2 years, it's probably close to $12 million of a visible pipeline. Not to mention what we could get, if we just keep going after it.
Yeah. Wow. It is amazing what a mindset shift can do, or the right partner, the right person to have those conversations with. Wow. Congratulations. It sounds amazing. I can't wait to hear the rest of that story. As we get to the back end of our conversation today, we got one last question for you. For the entrepreneurs or leaders, owners who are listening today, who feel stuck between that potential and the actual performance or the activity, right, that gets us where we want to go. What is one mindset shift or action step they can take in the next 90 days to move their business closer to its true value?
Yeah. There's so many resources, but I'll just throw out two that I think would be helpful. I'm blanking on the name of the book, but there are several EOS books, and I can't recall the name of the bread and butter one. it might be rocket fuel. But anyways, I would just recommend going on EOS, going on their website. Their series of books, and the foundational book is on there. Also, there are a list of consultants across the geographies are there available for people to review. So that's one path. And then the other path is I would strongly recommend, if you are in that place where you want a mindset shift, hire a business coach. Mm-hmm. That they will do volumes for you. You are so many people in those leadership positions, they're so used to and accustomed to being responsible and to, keeping people accountable. And because of that, they kind of, get in this island unto themselves. But to have an outside individual that can be that for you, it's that basic and simple. And many people just shy away from it because they feel like they don't need it. I've seen a lot of examples. If you're open to it, it does wonders.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Terry. This has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tricia. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Steve Landrum for putting the two of us together. Glad to have you. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today. If you found value in this conversation I had with Terry today, please share it with a fellow entrepreneur, veteran, or Houston leader ready to grow. Be sure to follow, rate, and review the show. It helps us reach more bold business minds just like yours. And your business, your leadership, and your legacy are built one intentional step at a time. So stay inspired, stay focused, and keep building the business and the life you deserve.